So what do an $85 billion supercomputer, your suddenly massive software bill, and a banned data center in California all have in common?
Well, they're all actually hitting the exact same invisible wall right now.
Exactly. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are synthesizing a really fascinating June 3rd, 2026 executive intelligence briefing. And our mission today is to look at this massive global collision where huge systems, artificial intelligence, the macroeconomy, geopolitics, they're all simultaneously slamming into severe structural bottlenecks.
Right, and the scale of this bottleneck is just staggering, especially when you look at the disconnect in the AI sector. Because on one end, you have this historic hyperscale spending going on. I mean, OpenAI is building their Stargate, Michigan data center campus, which is going to cost $85 billion just to get the hardware up and running.
$85 billion. That is just incomprehensible.
It really is. But then if you zoom down to the ground level, like to the developers actually building apps for you, that money is hitting a total brick wall.
Oh, yeah. We are seeing that with GitHub Copilot right now. They just shifted to token billing. So instead of a flat monthly fee, developers are now essentially paying a tiny toll for every single syllable of code the AI generates.
Yeah, exactly. Or even just process it.
Right. And their bills are suddenly spiking like 10 to 60 times higher. It is like building the world's most advanced mansion, then realizing you literally cannot afford to turn the lights on.
That is a perfect analogy, and that cost barrier is forcing a super rapid pivot in how we actually use AI. Since companies just cannot afford those astronomical cloud fees for complex agentic tasks where AI independently writes and tests code, they are shifting to edge-based AI.
Wait, so moving away from the cloud entirely?
Pretty much, yeah. We are seeing rollouts of things like Microsoft's Aeon 1.0. These are smaller reasoning models that run locally right on your laptop, completely bypassing those expensive cloud servers.
Okay, so tech companies are scrambling to cut costs by running AI locally. But to do that, they obviously need cheap, powerful hardware built right here. And I guess that brings us to the broader economy, specifically those $137 billion OBBA corporate tax cuts.
Exactly, the transition from software to hardware.
But hold on, I am a bit confused here. The whole point of that policy was to bring manufacturing jobs back to the U.S.,
Right? That was the stated goal.
But if these companies are just taking that tax break and buying AI and robotics to build the hardware, aren't we simply trading a reliance on foreign labor for a reliance on domestic automation? I mean, where are the actual jobs?
Well, the data reflects that exact tension. The mechanism happening here is what analysts are calling a two-speed economy.
A two-speed economy. What does that look like on the ground?
So because that tax money goes straight into capital-intensive robotics and smart manufacturing, the tech firms and asset holders get richer. But the displaced factory workers face a much tighter labor market. It is actually pushing unemployment up to 4.7%.
Wow, so the economy literally splits into two distinct speeds depending on who you are. So if you're wondering why your grocery bill is still high while the stock market is booming, you are feeling that friction firsthand.
You really are. And then add in the U.S. Trade Representative proposing new 12.5% tariffs on 60 different economies over forced labor concerns. It just feels chaotic.
It definitely does. But wait, aren't there exemptions to those tariffs to stop prices from going even higher?
Yeah, the administration is attempting a really delicate balancing act. They are deploying those tariffs to aggressively protect our domestic supply chains, but they are strategically using exemptions on raw materials like rare earths, energy, and food.
To try and keep consumer inflation from spiraling completely out of control. But, you can only balance things from the top down for so long before the ground level pushes back.
Right, and that friction is spilling over everywhere now.
It is wild to see local city councils and the federal government acting in the exact same way. Like, is this just standard political gridlock? Or are we seeing a fundamental grassroots rejection of business as usual across the board?
The briefing suggests we are seeing a truly decentralized resistance to systemic overreach. Take geopolitics, for example. The House of Representatives just passed a war powers resolution to curb unilateral executive military action in Iran.
Oh, wow. And that was triggered by a highly volatile kinetic exchange, right? Including that deadly drone strike on the Kuwait airport.
Exactly. And then you see that exact same rejection locally. Like a California municipality overwhelmingly voted to completely ban new data centers.
Banning them entirely. And state legislatures are going to war against ultra-processed foods because research links them to 2.3 million global deaths.
Yeah, whether it is Congress setting boundaries on geopolitical war powers, or local zoning boards rejecting tech footprints, or states fighting corporate food processing, these legislative bodies are actively trying to set hard boundaries. The systems have gotten too big, and the local levels are pulling the emergency brake.
It really shows how interconnected these bottlenecks are for you and me. I mean, a disruption in global trade corridors trickles all the way down to a local school district rejecting AI in the classroom. We are hitting the absolute limits of hyperscale systems.
We really are. But before we wrap up, there is one really fascinating detail happening quietly behind closed doors.
Oh, I love the behind closed doors stuff. Lay it on me.
So while society is debating server costs and zoning laws and job losses, labs like DeepMind and Anthropic have actively started hiring academic philosophers and psychologists to study machine sentience and model anxiety. They are literally testing models for signs of panic.
Wait, testing algorithms for panic. Are they actually sentient?
Well, no, the scientific consensus is that AI isn't sentient yet, but they are preparing for future architectures where that line gets blurry.
Okay, here is where it gets really interesting for you to think about. As we struggle to even afford the electricity for our $85 billion supercomputers, are we rapidly approaching a future where we must grant welfare rights to the very algorithms disrupting our economy?
It is definitely a wild paradox to consider.
Something to mull over for sure. Catch you on the next deep dive.